Hello and welcome to this session. We have with us Baroness Jan Royall of Blaisdon. She is the principal of Somerville College, University of Oxford, which also houses the Oxford India Centre for Sustainable Development. Under the last Labour government, she was the leader of the opposition in the House of Lords. And previously, Jan worked in the European Commission and for the Labour group in the European Parliament and is still an active backbencher. Jan, welcome to the summit.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Jan, it's needless to say that there have been some real significant changes afoot, especially in the world of education, higher education. And this has been a time of crises, both in the education world and in economies and geographies in general. In your role as a leader, as an academician, as an educationist, what are some of the key takeaways in terms of leadership in times of crises such as this?
Well, I have lived through, many crises, but I've lived through two crises. When I was leader of the House of Lords and I was a member of Gordon Brown's cabinet, that was when we were grappling with the global economic crisis. And the main takeaway I take from that time was the need for collaboration, cooperation. It was a global crisis, therefore Gordon Brown brought together the leaders of the world to try to find solutions to that crisis. And that's exactly, I think, what has happened certainly in Oxford in response to the current pandemic. And Professor Louise Richardson has done a brilliant job bringing together people from all over Oxford, all the colleges, 39 colleges, and the university to work together, because I think that collaboration, cooperation is always important, but especially at times of crisis when we need to act together in order to find solutions to the problems which we're confronting. I think one thing I would remark is that plans are extraordinarily important. And at the beginning of the pandemic, before Easter, we were in a state of flux, I guess you might say. The whole world was in a state of flux, not quite knowing what was going to happen next. And Louise and the university decided that what we needed to do was to have a plan in place, which would enable research to sort of continue, but to start up again in a very focused way, and to enable the university to return in Michaelmas in October with our full cohort of students. So we started planning in May. I co-chaired a university-wide group with a colleague who is the divisional head of humanities, Karen O'Brien, and we put together a plan working with people throughout the university, and following that plan and putting into place processes which we then followed has enabled the brilliant research to continue and all of our students to come back. But it has been a difficult time for education, and I think that students have found it a very different world now, and I'm sure that's the same for every student in every university all over the world. But they've managed, we have managed, we have almost our full cohort of students here. One thing that I think all universities are having to think more about is the mental health of students. And I was at a lecture, I hosted an online lecture the other day, in which one of our preeminent psychologists said that this time last year, 1 in 10 young people between the ages of 16 and 24 had a mental health problem, and now it's 1 in 5. That's not just a UK issue. I mean, that's the same for young people, not just students, all over the world. So I think that that's something that educationalists, but society as a whole, have got to focus on.
You've touched upon something really important, Jan, in terms of mental health. And clearly this generation, not just the youth, but more specifically students who are in higher education, clearly have a very, very tough and dark path, in terms of them not knowing what the future holds for them, in terms of careers, jobs, the kinds of skill sets required, because the world of business or work, as we know it, is undergoing a tremendous amount of change. At the university, what are some of the things that you're working on or thinking about in terms of helping students think through this process and be ready for the new world of work?
Well, I mean, we have lots of very good welfare support, but then in terms, we have mentoring by our alumni, for example, people who are already working in the world of work, but we have lots of discussions with our students and all over the university, trying to prepare them for this new, very uncertain, insecure world in which they're going to be unleashed at some time, but also talking to them about the opportunities, because they are in an immensely privileged position. They're having a fantastic education, and it is that education which will enable them to work on the problems and find the solutions which are confronting us now, but also the problems of the future. And I think that the fact that at Oxford, for example, they know that this is where one of the great pieces of research on vaccines is taking place. Research that some of the trials we're working on with India, which is fantastic, but it's great for them to feel that they're part of this world-class university, the best university in the world for the 5th year running. And so I think that gives them a sense of optimism and hope. But it's also the same for all students and all young people. I think that we have to not only teach them new skills, but teach them to be adaptable, give them the confidence to adapt in the future. Because whereas, well, because I'm old, I mean, when I was young, one thought that you're going to have a career, and that's your career, that's your trajectory for life. But it's very different now, as you know. And so we've got to enable them to have transferable skills and to be adaptable and agile.
Speaking of agility, one is on the skill sets and sort of on the work and career front. But this is also a time to invest heavily in mental health and well-being. And you touched upon, mental health issues really coming to the fore. What are some of the things that you think both individuals as well as organizations, not just universities, but large organizations can do in terms of building a culture of agility or resilience?
Well, I think the leadership of organizations, and specifically the people who are in charge of the learning in organizations, they have a great responsibility always, but especially at the moment, to help people to become more resilient, because there are some people who are naturally resilient, but most people aren't, and they have to learn how to be resilient. And I think that I'm an employer as well, we as employers, we have a responsibility to train our people and to help them to become more resilient, so that they can face the changes which they will have to meet in their life, throughout their lives. And it's, I think, lifelong learning and training throughout their careers is extremely important. So enable them to adapt their skill sets.
Right. With the lockdown across the world in various parts, online education has seen a massive uptake. And there have been all sorts of reports around when will things go back to complete face-to-face physical classrooms. There are several voices saying that they probably will not go back to the complete physical environment in the earlier shape and format. And where do you see the sort of answer line going forward?
I think online education is a wonderful thing, because we want everybody in the world to be able to realize their full potential, and education is a key to unlocking potential. And I know in India, for example, you'll know the stats better than I, but I think there are 41% of your population is under the age of 18 or something quite amazing. And so all these young people, they want and need access to education, and clearly they can't all have physical access to the best education, and online education enables them to study with, great universities all over the world. For example, I'm associated with Queen Mary University in London. I'm an alum, but I do lots of work with them, and they have a fantastic online education, which many young people are now able to take advantage of. But there will also always be, I think, a role for in-person contact in universities. And it's something that, as you will know as an alum, we excel at in Oxford. And whilst we now have some hybrid education, we have some lectures online, but we still try to do some face-to-face education. And I think that there will always be a need for that as well. But I do think that there will be a growing deliverance of online education. And that's a good thing, as long as people are still able to interact with human beings, that they're still able to build their networks and have discussion. I think if you're just stuck in front of a screen for God knows how many hours a day, I mean, that is demoralizing, as we all know now. So there has to be kind of some form of human interaction and not just the online learning.
I agree. Certainly it's the physical connect and, you know, some of the undirected learning that takes place in groups, you know, that is definitely missing in the sort of Zoom-based or online learning classes. Jan, you've obviously seen crises from a leadership position. You've managed through them. What are some of your key learnings as an individual leader through this crisis, you know, which other leaders and, you know, professionals can learn from?
I suppose it's that understanding of the need for resilience and to try to build one's own resilience. But then there's an understanding. I think that as a leader, sometimes one can feel very alone, one can feel very isolated. And that's not good at any time, but when there's a crisis, it's especially difficult and dangerous. And so I think it's good to have a team around you, a team with whom you can be utterly honest and seek advice and not be afraid to seek the advice of others. And sometimes that advice may be contrary to what your kind of gut instincts are, but sometimes it's important to take the advice of others and to work together, because you have to somehow lead in a way that takes others with you. You have to ensure that other people take ownership of the changes that are being made. Otherwise, they simply won't work. I love, I was very, very fond of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I liked very much one of her many sayings. And she said, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you, that you can take others with you. And I think that that's what it's like as a leader of an organization. You are a change maker in many ways, but you can only bring about those changes and implement those changes in a successful way if you take others with you.
So a lot more of collaboration and interdependence, especially during the crises.
Yeah, cooperation and consultation. I mean, I think consultation is really important as well. But I think it's important to be fit physically and mentally, and to take time to kind of, well, it's very hard, isn't it? We're all working crazy hours in the day at the moment, but I think it's important to take downtime as well in order to be fit. I think that one thing that the pandemic has done is to make us reevaluate in a way what we really care about in our lives. And so perhaps it's time to think about giving some time to the things that we really do care about and not working 24/7.
Right. No, certainly this is a period of self-reflection and introspection for many. Many have time on their hands to do that, and it is a process of reprioritizing many times health, wellness, family over several other things that we've probably been running around after. But thank you so much, Jan. We've come to the end of the session, but some great views from you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. An absolute pleasure. Thank you, Kumaar. Bye-bye.